Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Terry. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Vision Advisors, and I am so excited that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to join us for what's going to be a very powerful interview with the $20 million man. Now, for many folks during COVID, as we dealt with 2020 and the debacle that was, for so many of us in the financial services industry, the opportunity presented itself for those that wanted to look beyond the challenges and see the silver lining in the midst of the storms that we were dealing with. The individual I'm going to be introducing you today was one of those individuals. Can you imagine writing $18+ million in annuity premium out of your bedroom in the midst of COVID? Now, that's a pretty significant accomplishment, and the individual you're going to hear from today actually did that. And so we're going to spend some time in an interview walking through some very candid questions about how he did this and the opportunity that's going to be presented to those of you that are on this call to be able to access some of the same leads and the same opportunities that the $20 million man has used to significantly scale his business. You know, it's interesting, at a time when many producers saw a decrease in their production in 2020, the producers that we had an opportunity to work with, many of them saw their business either stay flat or increase. We met this individual towards the end of 2020, loved what he was doing and loved the concept that he put together, and wanted to find an opportunity to work with him and also to bring his insights into what we're doing here at Vision to help a handful of producers that want to raise their hand and say, I'm interested to become a part of what this individual is doing. So without any further ado, I want to welcome to our call today, Mr. Brian Anderson. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and a lot of changes I've decided to make in my career, and one of those is to try to help other people and bring other advisors into what I've been doing for the last 12 years.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, I know you started your journey into the world of annuities around the year 2008. Now, about that time, there wasn't a lot of online information about annuities. Brian, can you take just a few minutes and tell us how you got started and really what led you to your passion that you have for educating consumers about annuities?
Sure, I'd love to. It's my career started in 2003 as a young agent selling life insurance, setting up IRAs, and doing what a lot of people do to get started. And I kind of just through some family contacts ran into a couple of opportunities to sell annuities. At that time, I didn't know anything about them, and I had to bring one of the senior advisors in to do some joint work. And I think everybody also, a lot of people will remember that from their early days in the business where you had someone older helping you out. But it would just kind of spark me to start doing research on annuities. And because it was a time there wasn't any information online, and it was only pieces and parts. Really you had to study it to figure it out if you wanted the whole picture. And so I started making notes, and I had document after document of different types of contracts, riders, variable annuities, index annuities, fixed annuities, SPIAs, all that stuff. And I needed a way to document it. And I just met a friend. We decided to start a partnership, and he said, you should build a website. So that's kind of what jumped off in 2008 is when we started to build that and went online with it, not really knowing or having an end goal or knowing what would come of it.
Well, Brian, I know that you've been a bit contrarian as compared to many of your peers in the industry as it relates to annuities. And when we think about annuities today, you've got a particular beef with how annuities are often sold in the marketplace. And I'd really like to have you talk about that for just a minute, but also why your beef has really led you on a quest to change the way annuities are sold in America.
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because as a contrarian view, and I think a lot of people that sign up on my website will see that. I get a lot of people say no one else has ever said this to me before, and so my founding business partner, who's no longer with me, said, "You're the worst annuity salesman in the world." And And the funny thing is, the only reason I did that is because I was into full disclosure. So I wanted people to understand what they were getting into. And the reason I took a contrarian viewpoint to that is because I didn't just jump on every new fad product or opportunity out there. I decided to look at the fundamentals of it and teach people about the fundamental reasons for using annuities. I love the products, and I believe every single contract you can get has a specific purpose and a useful purpose for a given individual. But I think too many people get stuck in just selling one product and trying to sell it to everyone. So what happened early in the days of running the website is a lot of people would call me and tell me they had a proposal, and it was it just made me scratch my head, where it didn't seem at all that it was the appropriate solution for the person. And for whatever reason, another advisor was trying to sell that. So I decided to just open up the disclosure side of the business, just so that people would truly understand what they're getting into. And that's what draws a lot of people to the website.
Yeah, disclosure is such a big thing in what we do today. And the lack of disclosure oftentimes leads to complaints down the road. And one of the things I really admire about what you're doing with the clients that you work with is you're taking the time to help them fully understand the financial instrument that they are looking to utilize to solve a money problem. All too often, as you said, producers will walk in the door and they've got their pet product that they want to sell, or they are always wanting to sell the highest comp product, or whatever the reason may be, or it's just the fact that they don't want to learn a new product or get contracted with a new carrier and have to do the required CE. There's a little bit of laziness that comes in. But that full disclosure has been important. Brian, as you think back to the customers that you work with, what is the value that they have seen in having that full and transparent disclosure of fees and charges and all the other things that you cover in your conversations with them? What's been the response of your customer?
Well, I think that's a great question, and it was something I wanted to kind of add to my last comments. But I would say the best thing is, I don't have a single client who, I mean, every one of my clients likes the annuity they have, right? Another thing is, almost every one of my clients has come back and bought another annuity. So most of my clients have multiple contracts, and that's part of my process, is to tell people they don't have to do it all at once. And especially when we're talking index annuities, I think it takes a fair bit of experience for a person to truly understand what the contract means. Regardless of how much we explain to them, everybody gets comfortable with it about 2-3 years into it. And that's when they come and they say, you know what, hey, this is a good deal, I'm going to buy another one. Conversely, I've met hundreds and hundreds of people who are very dissatisfied with their annuities. And that's kind of where I found, when you say contrarian opinion, it's more of, that was my niche that I could use, right? That was my competitive positioning, and one way that I could draw people out of it. I read a stat years ago, this is in probably 2009 or 10, that 83% of people do research online before buying an annuity. And I bet that number is substantially higher now, probably close to 100%. So I knew if I could figure out a way, I had an opportunity to get my message in front of almost everyone who decides to buy an annuity.
You know, a statement that you made just a minute ago, I think, is powerful. And I want to go back and I want to dive into that just a little bit more, Brian.
Sure.
You made the statement, you talk to your clients and let them know you don't have to do it all at once. I can't tell you the number of times here at Vision, I've had a producer call the office and say, I just met with a client, they got $150,000. What can we do with it? Well, in their mind, they're wanting to go get the whole enchilada all at one time, and they're wanting to spend all of that money at one time. No fact finding, no digging into the client's goals and objectives. They've just seen an opportunity to get $150,000 and sell a product. Now, that goes into that contrarian view that you have of making sure that you understand the needs of the customer before you even make a recommendation. Can you spend a little bit of time delving into a little bit of that conversation process you have with a customer or a prospective customer to identify their wants, goals, and needs before you make a recommendation?
Yeah, yeah, I can. And the idea is really honestly finding what is holding them back. And for a lot of people, it's making a commitment to something they don't understand or don't trust. And we as advisors, we know that there are a lot of people out there that disagree with us. There are a lot of people that criticize us for selling annuities, if that's a nice way to put it, I guess. But the idea is just to thoroughly educate people and give them the opportunity to learn. And that's what I do with a lot of people. Most of the guys that come in are sitting there with a sales pitch in hand. And so when I look at it and say, well, why are you buying this? And they can't tell me why, then I realize, you know what you need to do? You need to take a step back and you need to learn how this product works first. And so that's really, education has been a big part of what I do through my newsletters, my reports, my videos. All that stuff gives the people the opportunity, which is why I do a majority of my business with people who have been on my website for a couple of years, because they've had a chance to really sit and think about it. I never put pressure on them, and just gave them the opportunity to learn, and let them get to know me.
I love the statement that you just made, Brian. When a client can tell you why they're buying a solution, they understand how that annuity solves a money problem. But far too many producers, as you said, go in with a canned sales pitch that they have learned, and they don't really take the time to uncover the wants, needs, and the desires of the customer, to get into the conversation that's going on in their head, to really find out the money problem they have, that anxiety that's keeping them awake at night. And I love that question in terms of what's holding them back. It's that fear, that objection, that lack of understanding, and where education gives them an opportunity to be an informed consumer, there's a lot less buyer's regret when that happens. Now, Brian, I know from you that you are a student of annuities and you study annuity contracts. Why do you think it's important for a producer to be a student of annuities and continually adding to their knowledge of what's out there in the marketplace?
Well, I think there's, again, if you look at, I always like to take an example and pick any given insurance company and say, you know, this specific insurance company has 25 different annuities. And I like to show people that example, and I like to say, why does that insurance company have 25 different annuities? And no consumer has ever been able to answer that question. My answer to that question, which I believe is right, is that that company has an annuity that is perfect for every type of situation that a consumer might be facing in retirement. So they've got an annuity that's built for legacy. They've got one that's built for near-term income, one that's built for long-term or for deferred income, one that's built for growth, and different variations of the two. So I don't think that any one product can solve all problems, although there are a lot of products out there that are, presented as being able to do everything, right? So a lot of it was just the fact that, people need to understand where it's not American Equity or Athene or Fidelity and Guarantee or Lincoln. Each of those companies has multiple contracts, and you've got to find one that suits your purpose, the exact purpose that you're trying, or the goals you're trying to achieve.
And that comes through being a student and understanding what the various companies bring and the nuances between the annuities. And there's so many different available options today and so many products that are available today. Uh, there's quite a bit of homework that needs to be done in this best interest world that we're moving into to make sure you're doing the right thing for the customer. Now, Brian, in 2020, you wrote $18.7 million in annuity premium. That in itself is an accomplishment. But what I like about it is you did it from a small corner bedroom office in your house in Montana with no staff. So
That
looking
is,
back, yeah, looking
yeah.
back at 2020 and thinking about all of the mess that we dealt with, what do you say to a producer that just gave up or shut down during the pandemic?
Well, um, I don't know how everyone else did. I know guys were successful regardless of the pandemic and what it was, but I just thought one big component of this business is to care about your clients and to let them know you care about them. So I kind of took that. Um, I got a lot of I got a lot of feedback, and I had a lot of people reach out to me because I've mentioned it before, but I send a weekly newsletter to everybody on my list. And it's mostly weekly. I do take some time off, but during the pandemic last year, instead of writing one post, I was writing at times 3 or 4 posts, just so uh, it would give people something to do. And a lot of people reached out to say, I'm looking forward to this every week because I love what you're writing. And I'd write something about annuities, and I'd write something about COVID, and I'd write something about, world events. And then maybe I'd write something about what me and my family were doing. Just give them an opportunity to say, hey, listen, I'm still here and I'm consistent, because I've always said the biggest thing about annuities is consistency. That's the most important feature that they provide in your life. And so as an advisor who represents annuities, I have to consistently be there and communicating with people. But that's, yeah, I did that business in the corner bedroom office of my house, but I would have been working in that corner bedroom office anyway. And so for me, it was easy. I think honestly, a lot of people got comfortable with the idea out of necessity to do distance meetings, Zoom meetings, stuff like that. And that really helped me because I was already really good at doing it. And I know a lot of other advisors, they had to transition into doing stuff like that where they weren't used to, but I'd been doing that for 12 years. So it wasn't a problem for me.
Brian, you just dropped a golden nugget that I don't know if the people that are listening to this telecast had an opportunity to really catch. So I want to go back to that for just a minute. One of the things that you said you did was you were sending out a weekly newsletter, and you increased the frequency of that during COVID. One of the things that we teach here at Vision Advisors is what we call our attractional advisor model. We teach producers how to stand out in the crowd and how to uniquely position themselves as an authority figure and as an expert that people seek out for their knowledge and advice. Now, what Brian did, and if you caught that, Brian talked about the fact that he was sending out a weekly newsletter. And it wasn't just a sales pitch on, hey, here's another annuity idea. He talked about COVID. He talked about politics. He talked about a variety of things in those newsletters that he was sending out to the people on his list, but he was consistent. So what did Brian do as a result of that? What happened to Brian? Brian became seen as an authority figure. He became seen as an expert in the subject matter he was writing about. But more importantly, Brian was sharing from his heart. He was sharing personal, intimate things that were going on in his life about his family. And he was talking to the individuals that are on the other end of that email communication that was going out as if they were a member of his family. Brian was doing something very powerful. He was showing that he was for his customer. Now, how many of you, if you would go back and look at the emails that you're sending to your clients, how many of those are customer focused in the messaging versus you focused as a producer? Notice one of the things that Brian did, and this is the golden nugget. Brian was consumer focused in what he was doing. He was sharing valuable information, but he was also sharing his own struggles, his own issues that he was dealing with, sharing what was going on with his own family life, just as you would do if you went to a family reunion or went to visit a family member and sat down. He was treating his customers like an extended member of his family. Now, Brian, you've created a lead generation systems that just simply works. I don't know any other way to describe it, but it works. It has generated more leads than you could work in 2020. But the thing I like about what you're doing is you continue to, as those leads come in, you continue to nurture those leads. And some of those individuals that have come in, as you said earlier, they may not buy from you, or they may not take action for 6 months, 12 months, even a couple of years down the road as you've nurtured those leads. Brian, what does your typical lead look like in terms of size, of the customer, in terms of their assets, in terms of their age, marital status, net worth? What's some of the demographic features that you see popping up on a consistent and regular basis in your leads that you're generating?
I would say it's a great question. So people understand the value of it. But I figured out, and what I can go by is every time I had a meeting, I make a note of the meeting, and I just have a big spreadsheet with, by month, where, the person, the date I talked to them, and I list their, total asset value plus projected annuity premium, or what I think would be appropriate. And I think the average of those, which is about 15% of the total signups, so I think it's a pretty good test pool, was average investable assets of about 800,000. And, and that ranges from 2 nickels to 10 million. So there's some big guys in there, and there's a few people that just need some help and have some questions, which I've always opened myself up to anyone, no matter how much money they have, because I want to make sure that's the goal. The number one thing is I want to help people. And that led to, most of the people are, within, 2-3 years of retirement. I would say the average lead that comes in is probably right around 60 to 65, just your typical person. And but that came to, my average sale, my average annuity ticket was about 350,000 last year.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, that I wanted to bring, your average case size. Now, you mentioned that your average customer buys from you and then oftentimes buys a second time, sometimes a third or a fourth. What's the timeline, or what's the lag time between the initial purchase and that second or that third follow up for, hey, I've got some more money, or I've got another need, I want to have conversation with you? What does that typically look like for you?
Well, it depends. It's different from person to person. I think the sales cycle for someone who's ready to go and ready to do something is about a month. It takes, it's a month because they come in, they're on the website for a few days before they make an appointment. The first appointment is just it's a quick strategy session to say, hey, what do you got? What are you trying to do? See if we get along, if we can establish rapport together. And then the second one would be, either, depending on where they are, either a proposal or, further education. And then there's a third and a fourth meeting that are follow-up, final questions, and try to get the commitment. But that takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I think the average person, I don't know, I've had 3 in the last month that just came in, signed up, 2 meetings, let's do it, let's buy an annuity, right? And then I've had a lot of people, because I'm writing the newsletter, I think there's a lot of value in the 4,500 people that are on my email list. And that's where, some of them do take a couple of years to do it. But I would say average is, right around, I don't know, 45 days probably.
That's a good turnaround. But I do like the fact that you continue to nurture those that aren't ready to say yes today. And that's an area that many producers fail in their follow-up. And I've got a training and a teaching that we do on that for producers, in the fact that many of them quit too soon. We know, and I'm a student of consumer buying behavior. It's an area of behavioral intelligence that I've spent a lot of time learning over the years. And Brian, we know that a typical consumer, there's a process that they go through to make a buying decision, whether it's a stick of gum or they're going to buy a Ferrari. They go through the same process of thinking and checking the boxes in their brain. And one of the areas that we find extremely valuable as they go through this process is that nurturing. That only 1 to 3% of consumers are ready to make a buying decision right now. But there's another 30 to 40% of those that are still looking for some information so they can check the rest of the boxes left unchecked, so that they can say yes to an answer that solves a money problem for them. So there's huge value in the follow-up that you do. Would you say that that newsletter has contributed significantly to your success as a producer?
Yeah, it's 80% of the production comes from there.
So think
Because
about that. Yeah.
what I feel, though, it replaces what it does is it replaces the follow-up call and the endless phone calls. It's a softer pitch, and it takes a little bit longer, but that's where, I keep building a funnel, and I pile more and more people into it, and they just, the more it gets going, the more they fall out the bottom of it, and it works, right? So
That's right.
The key is just to really always be there, give them value. And that was, one of the tricks in the early newsletter was take a case for a guy who can't make a decision, maybe change his name, but make it kind of anonymous, write a newsletter case study about this guy's situation and detail all the reasons why he should do one thing or the other. And so you're actually writing the email to that one person, but you're sending it to everyone. But it's, it's anonymous. Nobody really knows, but it's close enough to the guy that he knows that you're talking about him. Right. And I think when I'm able to do that specifically for an individual, we have an almost 100% close rate for that person, because they see it and then they realize they'll email me and say, hey, or they'll call me, were you talking about me? I was, oh, no. Yeah. I was talking about Gary. No, I wasn't talking about you. So I guess it's a little dishonest, but but specifically I said, no, I just want you, but I guess that situation is a lot like yours. Yeah. So it's the same. And I think there's some social proof that comes along with that, and people realize it, so that they see, because it's not only for that one person, it's also for everybody else to understand, that, other people are having a hard time making decisions, but then to see the proof behind it and the justification for one path over another.
And you bring up a valid point there, Brian, is that annuities have to be sold. It's not a commodity product like a MedSup or some other product that people know they need. An annuity is something people seek out when they realize they've got a guaranteed income problem, or they want to take risk out of the market but still have an opportunity for growth, or a variety of the different reasons that annuities are used in that capacity. Now, Brian, as you think through what you're doing in your process, how do you keep track of and how do you manage all of your clients? Do you use a CRM? Do you use Outlook? What kind of tools do you use to keep track of the follow-ups and things that you're doing?
I use a CRM called Entreport, which organizes people by different categories. My client, if I want to send an email to just my clients, I can separate those from the general email list. But weekly, everybody gets a newsletter. And also we just started doing a podcast as well. So people are getting the opportunity to go see that. And so, yeah, that's kind of the best way that I know to manage it. So I have my reminders set up for, annual renewals. I'm not really a birthday guy. I'm a, Christmas, New Year's email. Thank you. Appreciate your support and wish you all the best, you and your family, all the best kind of thing. But, and that's kind of the newsletters taking place of a lot of customary things, because people are continually hearing from me.
Right. And you can still accomplish the same thing. We have a CRM system that we provide to the financial advisors that are contracted in doing business with Vision Advisors. And it's got a built-in marketing system within it where they can actually schedule things to go out to send to their clients so they can stay top of mind aware. But I like the idea of a newsletter, because you can take a newsletter and say Merry Christmas to 4,500 of your clients and still share a personal story that every one of them can resonate with. Those individual touches are important, but as you said, that group communication allows you to leverage that ability to communicate with a large group of folks, but still stay personal. Now, Brian, is there anything in those newsletters and in your podcast, another great way to stay in touch, is there anything unique that you always try to do so that you keep the folks coming back to read the newsletter or coming back to listen to the podcast? Is there a magic formula that you have that seems to work for you?
Well, I think I'd kind of have, I've got a little bit of a creative mind, and I've always, I guess, one way I can kind of explain it is when I went to college, I took entry-level English class and did some writing. And I thought, man, I really like being a writer. I used to want to be an outdoor writer. When I was in high school, I wanted to go around and go fishing and hunting and write stories about it. And I'm glad I didn't, because that area is, or that market is saturated right now. There's a lot of competition. But I had one of my close friends' dad said to me, he said, "Are you crazy? You'll never make money being a writer. Go into business." And so I did, and I liked finance. I had a good mind for it. I was really good with all the formulas when we had to do the calculations longhand back in the day. But I gravitated toward writing the newsletter because I was able to write about things I wanted to write about. And it's not always annuity specific, but it's always got a message about annuities intertwined with it. So I like fishing and hunting. I wrote a couple years ago, I wrote why I like annuities, and it was the market was up and down. I was on a hunting trip with my horses and mules and a good buddy of mine, and I remember getting high in elevation and checking the market. The market's all over the place. People were attacking Donald Trump, and he was going to jail, and Russia and all this garbage, right? And there's just this mayhem in the world that's out there that people see. But I said, I like annuities because I'm in a beautiful spot. And I know that no matter what's happening, all my clients are getting exactly what they expected. Their money's safe and they don't have to worry about it. So I talked, and I showed a few pictures of my horses on the top of a mountain in a beautiful spot. And it was just kind of a personal message so they could get to know me a little bit and say, this is why I do what I do, because there's peace of mind and there's safety in this. And so those are some of the stories. The same thing I did last year in the middle of COVID. I took my wife and kids on a pack trip in the Yellowstone backcountry, and I came back and I was inspired to write a story about how mules are like annuities, and people absolutely loved it because they had an opportunity to draw a parallel to financial life plus physical existence. And it was stuff like that's been really, really good, where it's not heavy on data. It's not heavy on there's not a sales pitch in there. It's just kind of some ideas and just talking and telling stories. And that's the stuff that people really, really like.
Yeah, that's an area that far too many producers miss, is the fact that our brains are hardwired for stories. From the time we were little children sitting in our grandma or grandpa's lap or our mom and dad's lap, people read stories to us. They told stories to us. And for generations, going back thousands and thousands of years before we had the written word, culture and history was passed forward in story form. That's how we remember. And some of the most powerful lessons that you can do as a financial professional is to do what Brian did and tell a story that they can relate to, that speaks to where they are. I've seen pictures of Brian's horses, and somebody that loves horses, I can relate to the fact that there's peace of mind in being able to do what Brian does. And there's great value in that. But Brian, you made a statement that you said one of the things that you love as a result of what you do is your clients are getting exactly what they expected. And that's really what's led to your success. But Brian, I know that as you think back to all the leads you generated in 2020, how many of those leads did you get an opportunity to work that actually became sales opportunities for you in 2020?
About 12%.
So out of all the leads that you generated, you wrote almost $20 million in premium based upon about 12% of the leads that you generated.
That is correct.
And the rest of those lead opportunities, you've continued to nurture, you've continued to cultivate, moving them further down the funnel to the point that they're ready to say yes.
Yes, that's correct. And the trend is continuing this year, where most of the sales I've been making are people that have been on the list for a year or two. And so they've just kind of getting warmed up, getting comfortable, getting used to the idea. Continue to justify it, be consistent. And I tell people all the time, I've been saying the same thing for 10 years. I had one gentleman last year that bought an annuity, not a big one, $150,000, but it was a nice sale. And he'd been on my email list, and we'd been having about an annual meeting, or a semi-annual meeting for 5 years before he decided to buy an annuity. And it's that same way for every advisor. As you become more seasoned and gain more experience, and things seem to happen a little more quickly and a little more easily. But I can say a lot of my sales are pretty easy, but if you count all the effort I put into writing a quality newsletter every week, and recording podcasts and doing all that stuff, there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and I'm not able to work all of that. It's just I do not have time. There's 88% of the people that signed up my list have not ever received a phone call.
And so that leads us really to the opportunity that we have, and one of the reasons that you're working with Vision Advisors. As you're generating these leads, the biggest bottleneck in your business because of your success has literally been you. you can't get to all the lead opportunities that are presenting themselves to you right now. And so as a result of that, Brian has made an offer to work with some of the producers that are contracted with Vision Advisors to make these qualified leads available to you as a producer, to give you the opportunity to experience some of the same success that Brian has experienced in his life. So, Brian, as they're looking to work some of these leads and have an opportunity to do that through Vision Advisors, what can they expect from the leads that you're going to be making available to the producers that are interested?
I would say that the leads that I'm getting are well educated. They are of very high quality. And I think my averages are well above industry, but I'm not quite sure because I don't have that data. And the idea being, I've always said annuity straight talk is the smart way to buy annuities. And it seems like I do end up getting the clientele that's upper echelon. So if I say the average client or average prospect has 800,000 in investable assets, I would say the median is well over $1 million to $1.5 million. So typically I call them in the 95th percentile of retirees.
Well, that's a pretty good percentile to be in if you're at the top 95% of the retiree space. That's a great area to be at. Now, Brian, you normally historically have sold these leads when you've sold them just a handful at a time. You've sold these leads for around $350 a piece. If we're working with a producer that's contracted with Vision Advisors, what can they expect to pay for the leads that they're going to have an opportunity to acquire working with you through Vision?
Well, what we've decided on, I think, is fair because we're not going to, do all the stuff that the other places I think are charging $350 or even more right now. There's one guy, everybody probably knows him. I think he charges $1,000 to set up an appointment, and then he takes half your commission too. So what I figured was reasonable was $200 for the leads, fresh leads in the last 60 days. And then obviously negotiations for people who are interested, who would like to work some of the leads that have been more seasoned but are still active, people that are still active on the website.
Absolutely. So as we wrap this up, I want to give a couple of opportunities and a couple of call to actions for those of you that are listening to this, to give you an opportunity to figure out how you may want to work with Brian and with Vision Advisors. Brian has shared that he's going to be making available leads at a discounted rate of $200 a lead for leads that have been generated within the last 60 days. These are individuals that are reaching out as a result of Brian's ongoing efforts to raise awareness of annuities and have raised their hand and said, I'm interested. If you are contracted with Vision Advisors, these leads are going to be made available to you at a cost of $200 a piece. We're also going to be looking for a handful of producers that may want to work more closely with Brian in the future. Brian is looking at creating kind of a SEAL team of very dynamic individuals that would like to work alongside of him and have an opportunity to go a little deeper in what Brian does in terms of cultivating his clients, and have an opportunity to work more one-on-one, where you're not only getting an opportunity to work leads, but you're getting some coaching from Brian. You're getting the benefit of some of the other things that he's doing in his personal practice. So here's your call to action as we get ready to wrap up this particular webinar today. Your call to action is to do one of two things. You can shoot an email to me, John, John, at visionadvisorsinc.com, and you can say, I'm interested. And you can tell me whether or not you're interested in just purchasing leads, or if you're interested in being interviewed for a handful of positions that Brian is going to be looking to fill later on this year for individuals to work on his team. The second option you've got is you can go to our website, visionadvisorsinc.com, and you can scroll to the bottom of the homepage. You'll find my calendar as well as our other business consultants' calendars right there on the website. So what I would encourage you to do is there's two individuals I'd encourage you to reach out to on that website. If you would reach out to me, John Terry, or reach out to Kathy Gumbiner, our calendars are on that homepage. You can schedule a time to have a conversation with us to talk about your practice, what you're doing, and how you would like an opportunity to plug in and to be a part of what we are doing with Brian to help educate, raise awareness, and create an opportunity to help a customer find the right solution that solves their safe money problem. I love when Brian says he wants to make sure that his clients get exactly what they expected. Brian's doing something unique in the marketplace, and it's something we teach in our Tractional Advisor model. It's relationship marketing. It's moving beyond just being a transactional insurance agent that's just selling to anybody and everybody that can fog a mirror, but learning how to be recognized and seen as Brian is, as an authority figure and as an expert, and how to uniquely build relationship with your client so that they not only buy from you, they come back and buy from you again, and they also become an unpaid sales team for you in the fact that they are sharing the results that you've accomplished for them with their friends, their family, their neighbors, and their coworkers, and they're inviting them to be introduced to you as well. That's part of what we help you do here at Vision Advisors. Brian's done a great job of that on his own with building what he's built with his organization. And now you've got an opportunity to plug in and be a part of that. Brian, as we get ready to wrap up this call today, any final comments or any thoughts that you want to share before we bring this to a conclusion?
Just a couple. I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity to branch out and help other people. And I guess the point of this is I'm not trying to make money selling leads. I want to increase my ad budget because I think if anybody's interested in really getting after it, we can control this annuity market and make a really big footprint out there. And I think Vision Advisors is a great company. I'm really happy that we've decided to work together. One thing we've found from the leads we've sold in the past is that these are the same ones. We have a lot of guys that were buying leads for $300 or $400 from other people, and they'd see ours and say, "Oh, I already got that one. I paid $400 for that." And so we know that they're viable and they're every bit as good as what other guys are doing out there. So I'm excited, and I think we can make it work. And I'd love to meet anyone who's ready to get after it.
Excellent. Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to really share some insights into what you're doing and how you're seeing success. And we are very excited about the opportunity to be working with you and the producers that want to plug in and be a part of what you're trying to do to change the dynamic of helping people embrace the value of annuities in their life. Again, if you've got any questions or concerns, please reach out to us here at Vision Advisors, John at visionadvisorsinc.com, or you can reach out to Kathy at visionadvisorsinc.com, or go to the website visionadvisorsinc.com, and you can schedule a strategy call to speak with Kathy or myself. Our phone number, if you want to reach out to us directly, is 1-800-505-8489. And again, we're here to serve. We're looking forward to an opportunity to help you see success, and looking forward for those that are interested in being interviewed to be a part of Brian's team down the road. We welcome the opportunity to start those conversations as well. Brian, thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are on the call today, thank you for joining us as well. I'm John Terry with Vision Advisors. Have a great day.
Thank you.